Generally regarded as safe. It sounds simple enough, but GRAS is one of the most misunderstood parts of the FDA's regulatory framework for food ingredients, and getting it wrong can cost you significantly. So what does GRAS actually mean? How do you establish it for your ingredient? And what happens if you get it wrong? That's exactly what we're covering today. The GRAS framework sounds straightforward, but in practice it trips up a lot of companies. Some assume that because an ingredient is widely used, it must already be GRAS. Others go through a full self-determination process without realizing that the documentation needs to meet a specific standard. And some don't realize there are actually two pathways to the GRAS status, with very different implications for how you document and defend your conclusion. Getting this wrong doesn't just slow down your product launch. Using an ingredient that doesn't have proper standing can expose you to FDA enforcement action and potentially product recall. I'm Andrew Parshad, founder of Quality Smart Solutions. Since 2007, we've helped thousands of food brands and ingredient companies navigate the FDA's regulatory framework, and GRAS is one of the most frequently misunderstood parts of that process. So let me break it down clearly from what GRAS actually means to how you establish it for your ingredient. So GRAS stands for generally regarded as safe. Under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, any substance intentionally added to food is technically a food additive and subject to FDA pre-market approval, unless it qualifies as GRAS. The idea is that if qualified scientific experts generally agree a substance is safe for its intended use, it doesn't need to go through the full approval process. GRAS status can be established in one of two ways: through scientific procedures, meaning robust published data and expert consensus, or through a history of common use in foods before 1958, which applies to many traditional ingredients that were already in widespread use at that time. The range is broad. Common food additives like xanthan gum, sodium benzoate, and aspartame are on the list. So are many natural ingredients such as vitamins, minerals, flavor compounds, and preservatives. The key phrase to keep in mind is under the conditions of its intended use. An ingredient that's GRAS at one concentration or application may not be GRAS at a different one. Context and usage matter. Here's where it gets interesting and where companies often need guidance. There are two main routes to establishing GRAS status for an ingredient. The first is a voluntary GRAS notification to the FDA. So basically you compile your safety data, convene a qualified experts, an expert panel, prepare the dossier, and submit it to the agency. The FDA reviews the submission, and if it has no objection issues, a no questions letter is issued. The substance is then added to the public GRAS notice inventory, and this pathway provides transparency and a very strong layer of regulatory credibility. The second route is self-affirmed GRAS. Now in this case, the company conducts its own internal safety assessment with qualified experts and concludes independently that the ingredient meets the GRAS standard. There's no formal FDA submission in this pathway. However, the documentation needs to be just as thorough and scientifically defensible as if you were actually submitting it to the FDA. A question we get a lot is, which pathway should we use? Well, the honest answer is, it really depends on the ingredient. It also depends on your commercial goals, your risk tolerance. Self-affirmed GRAS is faster and less costly. The FDA notification provides more certainty and public recognition. Both are legitimate. Both require serious scientific work. Regardless of which pathway you choose, the foundation is the same: a thorough safety assessment, and that includes reviewing the scientific literature of your ingredient, toxicological data, exposure estimates based on intended use, and consensus from a qualified panel of experts who are independent from the company. One of the most common mistakes that we see is companies treating this as a documentation exercise rather than a genuine scientific evaluation. The FDA has been increasingly attentive to GRAS determinations in recent years, particularly around self-affirmed status. So the quality of the underlying evidence matters more than ever. Well, the answer is it can. If new scientific evidence raises safety concerns about an ingredient, the FDA can reassess and withdraw GRAS status. This has happened, trans fat and certain synthetic flavorings being well-known examples. So ongoing monitoring of ingredient safety is not just good practice, it's part of maintaining your compliance position. So to bring it all together, GRAS status exempts a food ingredient from FDA pre-market approval, but it still requires solid scientific evidence and expert consensus. There are two pathways, FDA notification and the self-affirmed GRAS pathway, and both demand rigorous documentation. The ingredient's safety must be evaluated in the context of its intended use and concentration, and GRAS status can change if new safety data emerges. Whether you're bringing a new ingredient to market or reviewing the compliance standing of something already in your formulation, understanding where you sit on GRAS is a critical first step. At Quality Smart Solutions, we guide ingredient companies and food brands through the full GRAS process, from initial feasibility to dossier preparation and FDA notification support. You can explore our GRAS services at QualitySmartSolutions.com. If any of these subjects apply to your product or your market entry strategy, the best next step is a conversation with our team. We're here to help you move forward with confidence. So reach out. We're here to help you.